accounts payable, what you owe to your vendors. On a typical day, Walmart will have perhaps hundreds of millions of dollars that it owes to its vendors. Walmart, as you know, doesn't manufacture any of the things it sells. It buys from vendors all over the globe. Okay, so on a given day, if you were to look at this number for Walmart, it'll be hundreds of millions of dollars for Walmart. And every day it makes payments, to some of the vendors. And then you have notes payable. Notes payable are also called short-term loans. So remember the two definitions. Notes payables are also called short-term loans. Short-term loans. Life is 1 year or less. Okay. So once again, it's not a very, this balance sheet does not provide you many details, just two. That's okay for us. So this is short-term funding, short-term. So yes, your vendors, well, Walmart's vendors help Walmart go. Yes. Walmart buys on credit, maybe pays them after 40 days. So within 40 days, it's able to sell, okay? Vendors have still not been paid. So you see how vendors help, Walmart by providing Walmart financing. If I'm Walmart, maybe I buy these laptops today and I sell them tomorrow. So I already received the cash for those laptops, but I have still not paid the vendors who sold me those laptops. See what I'm doing here? So I'm converting that merchandise into cash and running my business. Okay, then these are long-term, short-term, and these are long-term. There are two types of long-term funding. Two types of long-term funding. One is long-term debt. Life is more than a year. Life is more than a year. Okay, long-term. So loans with the maturity of more than a year are called long-term debts or long-term loans. Okay, you don't see total liabilities here. So there could be a question, on your next quiz or on the test. Can anyone tell me how to get to total liabilities? You have current liabilities. How do we find, and as I said, this balance sheet is an abbreviated balance sheet. A real balance sheet, a detailed balance sheet will provide you that number, but suppose you had to find that number. What do you need to do to find that number? Total liabilities. Anyone? Yes? You add current liabilities and long-term debt. Okay, so if you add this and this number, this gives you total liability. So let's add this number here. Total liabilities, so you have 389 and you have 454. Okay. 843 is your total liabilities. Total liabilities. Short-term and long-term. Okay.
What do you add together?
Current liabilities and long-term debt. Current liabilities and long-term debt. Okay, so those were the two. Short-term, current liabilities, the first source of funding. Long-term debt, the second source of funding. Okay, you can combine. And the third source of funding is owners, shareholders, stockholders. We use them interchangeably. So I don't know if you are aware of it, but in the past semesters, once in a while, some student would say, are owners the same thing as shareholders, stockholders? Yes, it's the same thing. You can call them owners, you can call them shareholders or stockholders.
You said there were 3 types of funding. You said accounts payable, notes payable.
No. Current liabilities, okay. Long-term debt, okay. That's number 2. And the third is owners. So the 3 sources of funding are current, short-term loans, you can say. Yes, so current liabilities, you can call them short-term loans. Yeah, these are loans from your vendors, from your banks. Long-term loans, that's number 2. And the third is owners. So these are not loans. This is This is equity. Now we are talking about the equity component, something that comes from your shareholders. Okay, so if you add the three numbers, this number, and this number, this is the owner's account. Okay, so this is what happens. If in a given year, like JCPenney has been losing money left and right, in chapter 3 we'll deal with, I downloaded JCPenney's data yesterday, and so we'll be looking at JCPenney's numbers and trying to figure out where JCPenney is headed. So JCPenney has been losing money. So what you will see is the owner's account will be shrinking. Why? You have retained earnings here. In JCPenney's case, these are going to be retained losses. Okay, these are going to be negative numbers. So what is this number here? This number is the number that JCPenney's owners, this is the amount that JCPenney's owners handed over to the management when they purchased the stock. Okay, so this is what the management started with. Okay, and then what will happen here? Retained earnings will be a negative number. Each year for the past 4 or 5 years, I don't think JCPenney has made a profit. So negative. So you start with 640, hypothetically speaking. You have $40 of loss in year 1, 60 in year 2, 40 in year 3, and so on and so forth. So what you will see here, owners, pie, the owner's stake in the firm is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. So this is the owner's account. So any loss, any profit is added here, so that makes the owner's share of the pie, increase. Any loss is subtracted from this number here, what they call common stock and paid in surplus. This is the technical term for when you purchase. Originally, when JCPenney went public, that time, when it may have sold some more stock, down the line. So originally, when shareholders purchased stock in JCPenney, handed over millions of dollars to JCPenney. So those millions of dollars show up here. And then any profit is added to those millions of dollars. Any losses are subtracted from those millions of dollars. Okay, let me go back and, okay, so see if I missed anything. So current liabilities are short-term loans, long-term debt, long-term loans, and net working capital. Here is a term. So you already know what working capital is. Working capital. What is working capital? Current assets. What is net working capital? The same thing? No. Here is the definition of net working capital. Net working capital. Net working capital equals current assets minus current liabilities. Current assets minus current liabilities. That's net working capital. Okay? So let's find out the actual number. Let's say for 2003, what's the amount of current assets? Total current assets, of course. 1403. So I'm plugging in the numbers here. So this is 1403 minus, what's the amount of current liabilities? 389, right? 389 minus 389. So let's subtract this. This is our net working capital. So this will be 4, this will be 1, and this will be 1014, am I right? Is it right?
Yes.
1014. This is the amount of net working capital. Okay, so now you know what it is. So why is it important? That's the question. So let's look at it. Let's try to understand. So our firm has 1403 in current assets, cash, receivables, inventory. Of this 1403, 389 comes from these sources. You can say short-term lenders and vendors, 389. The difference, so in other words, not all of current assets are financed by these two people, these two entities, not all of it. They finance only a part of it. The difference is what is not financed by your vendors and your lenders. That's a huge amount there. So now here is my